without that goal of what we're trying to accomplish, without that desire to learn more and to grow. But in the end, it's going to come down to the work we put in to gaining that knowledge, to become better than everyone else.
What's up, champions? Welcome to another one of our Think and Grow Rich trainings that we do here at Champion Circle, to where we deep dive into the principles of Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. So if you want to think and grow rich, these are the principles that you need to know. It's brought to you by our group, Champion Circle, which is a professional business specialized to be able to help you as a business owner or entrepreneur to achieve a goal in 90 days. And if you are tired of second guessing and tired of just the inconsistencies of just how life is and actually want to get results, you need to join. You can go to mychampionscircle.com to be able to find the links to be able to do that. Now, for this awesome training that we have, we are in the month of April. And in this month, we jump into the fourth principle of Think and Grow Rich, which is specialized knowledge. And this is a good one because we talked about desire, we talked about faith, we talked about auto-suggestion and keeping it front of mind. But now we're going into the knowledge aspect. And I'm excited to let you hear from the speakers that we have. First, we're going to hear from the founder of Champion Circle, Mr. Jon Kovach Jr., who is going to first share with us his thoughts and his wisdom on this training. Jon, go ahead and take us away.
Look, if you're a human and you're within the reach of my voice at this moment, it is a high probability that you've started something and then immediately stopped doing it, meaning consistency out the window, repetition out the door, and any potential opportunity of fulfilling or finishing that task or goal completely out of the question. Because it's normal for us as humans to start something and then to not finish or follow through. It is in our nature to be excited to start things, but then not to go through with them. Does that make us non-integrity based people? Not necessarily, but it does show a lot of how much we like to focus on what we truly want. The power of specialized knowledge is such an interesting skill set. And Napoleon Hill teaches that it is one of the most important steps to accomplishing riches. In fact, let me quote him right now. Boom, I got my copy of Think and Grow Rich. And he says, the missing link, and he really goes on this rampage about public education and the education system of our world. But he says, the missing link in all systems of education known to civilization today may be found in the failure of educational institutions to teach their students how to organize and use knowledge after they acquire it. Let's go back for a second. The failure of educational institutions to teach their students how to organize it and use knowledge after they acquire it. Boom, they give you the information. Boom, they tell you how to test for it and how to memorize it and where to use it and where to store it. But have they given you the knowledge on how to organize it and use that knowledge after they acquire it? Now, debatable, because when you go to medical school, I have two sisters that are PAs. When you go to medical school, you use a lot of what you learn, but you don't use everything you learn. And that's because when you go through medical school training, you start to specialize in a particular study or specialize in an area of work. Because when you are hired on by a hospital or a medical group, you then start to specialize in your department, which might be the cardiovascular department or the pulmonary or whatever it might be, wherever you're called to. All right, a lot of jargon here, but I just wanted to share specializing comes from repetition and showing up and going past the initial stages. The number of people who make it through medical school versus the people who do not make it through medical school is astronomically despairing. How you can look at who actually gets through and who does it. Very similar to that is who out of the hundreds of thousands of college athletes actually move on to the pro level, and as well as professionals in the regular work environment. How many people actually make it past the initial steps of becoming the entry level job all the way up to the manager, the supervisor, or even, dare I say it, the executive level team? But it comes from a natural place of our educational system. So how do you break through that? How do you overcome this already uphill battle in everything that we're doing? How do you organize your thoughts so that you can take the things that you learn and use them after you acquire the information and knowledge? The answer is really simple. It's called repetition. And many of you, as I say repetition, are rolling their eyes, or they're saying it can't be that simple, but it is. It absolutely is. A great book, one of my favorite books. It's called Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. He talks about how the most incredible athletes, the most incredible musicians, the greatest people in tech, all of the greats of the greats, they get where they were or are and become as famous as they are because of one particular skill set, and that's the power of repetition. It's important that you focus and continually work on the things that you want to use to get better at. If you want to be something, you have to repeatedly show up for that. As a motivational speaker, I get after my own self when I've gone a week without speaking or speaking to a group or even being on a podcast. As a motivational speaker, I get after myself when I realize I have not been reading out loud or articulating my words or doing the speaking exercises to help exercise my lips, my tongue, and my brain. I recognize the importance of doing what you already know how to do, but repeatedly so that it's always on and never having a bad day or off or not performing at its best percent, because your repetition of performance leads to a better outcome over regular people who decide that's not the skill set or the specialized knowledge that they've pursued, which makes you invaluable to your circles, to your community, and to your organizations. Let me tell you a quick story. I moved to the Philippines. And in the Philippines, I realized that there was a huge barrier to connecting with people if I did not know their language. And luckily, I moved to Manila, which is just outside the capital city. It's one of the most populated places in the Philippines. And the language there is called Tagalog. It's spelled Tagalog. Okay, Tagalog. Tagalog is what it looks like. And this is not a hard language to learn, but if you look at it from the first time ever, having no perspective of learning a language, it looks like a pretty darn hard language to learn. It's a lot of abacadas and a lot of vowels and a lot of consonants and a lot of da 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 da, and you have to learn a new cadence, especially if you're, from a Western civilization culture like I am, where we don't really talk that fast. and in fact, we don't even pronounce our words that fast. And sometimes we get lazy with our words and we just draw them out like we're from the South. It's just what we do. Okay. But I was determined to learn this language, and memorization, not my strong suit. Practicing out loud, definitely not my strong suit. And also, obtaining and retaining information, not my strong suit. I failed more English classes in high school than I want to admit. But English is my first language. So here I am learning this language, and I'm about a week into my Philippine experience, and I realized just how hard it is. But I was determined, absolutely determined, to accomplish this goal of learning a language. So repetition. Every day I showed up and I would read the same pages out loud and just practice and practice and practice. And sometimes the person or the people that I were with would help and critique and give feedback, but over and over and over again, I'd practice. And I got to tell you this is the best transition of my life, because there wasn't a moment that I just like, boom, snapped, the light bulb turned on, and I was speaking fluently the language of Tagalog. It didn't happen like that. But over time, the more persistence I poured into practicing, making mistakes, and sharing and saying the right and wrong things and getting that feedback led to an increased skill set of speaking it. And it wasn't long before, maybe 2 months, a whole 60 days of living in the Philippines, where my immersion to this language started to grow and get better. And people started to talk less about my language and answer more about the questions that I was asking people. And then it became more of a fluid conversation. And then the jokes started to flow out. And then the comments and the conversations began to lengthen. And before you know it, I wake up maybe 2 or 3 months into this entire experience. And I remember the first time waking up and my thought in my head of my normal thoughts when you wake up, like, hey, good morning, it's time to get ready for work or whatever. My first time waking up and my thoughts were not in English. My thoughts were in Tagalog. That's when I realized, how far have I gone without realizing that I was completely diversed and immersed into this language of Tagalog. And it wasn't an overnight thing. And I have to tell you that because too many people, too many instant overnight gurus are teaching you that you can do things quickly and have a ton of success. Well, I did have a ton of success, but 3 months later, I started to recognize this transition. And to me, that was persistence. That was specialized knowledge. That was the repetition to create outcomes and success. So as I wrap this up, I want to encourage you, whether you're learning a language, a skill set that's going to help you get a pay raise or that new job, or it's going to help you build a business or something that's really going to help you grow and accomplish your goals and achieve the desires that you truly have. Remember that the time you put into accomplishing something through repetition will make you that much greater than the person next to you at that one thing. It's one thing to learn how to ride a bike. It's another thing to learn how to ride a bike for hundreds of miles and compete in competitions and become the best bike rider in the world. It takes time. It takes repetition. So if you're sitting here now thinking, man, well, I have, only so many years left of my career and I have so much to do, start now. It's never too late. Repetition is the way to create that specialized knowledge. And when you do, you'll wake up one morning and the language of once was will no longer be, and the language of this is how it is, and your skill sets of that language will completely change your world and mind. And then you'll be proficient, not efficient, but proficient in the skill sets that you've invested in. And even if it's reading a couple books on the topic, practicing out loud, speaking to more people, or putting yourself in that uncomfortable place of practice, you too shall find the outcomes that you're seeking through the power of repetition. My name is Jon Kovach Jr., and this is how you gain and obtain and use and master specialized knowledge. Thank you.
Jon, thank you so much for sharing that training. And man, it is so crucial of these principles. I love how Napoleon goes into each of these, like specifically, and how timeless these principles are. Because especially with specialized knowledge, as you'll hear from myself in just a second, as well as our other speaker, Ian Stermer, and that you just heard from Jon, it is so crucial to be able to have that specialized knowledge, not just general, but like useful in the world. Because how many times do we like Google and everything? It's just so general. We can get general knowledge in a snap of a finger, but when you know what you're talking about, well, then people start to listen. And as champions of where we're trying to get our voice out there amongst everyone else who's screaming, it's very much needed. I have this chance to be able to share my thoughts with you about this principle. I want to ask you, how many of you have ever read 100 books in a year? Most people will be like, no, I haven't done that. And I haven't done it either. However, I remember when I first started to read, from the average dyslexic dude that I was back in 2018 of just maybe one book a year to then working to a few, and then a dozen, then a couple dozen, up to 50 plus every single year. I remember along that journey that I made a mistake. And I didn't learn about it until 3 years in. 3 years in, I was sitting there, and I can't remember who I was listening to. It could have been Alex Hormozy, it could have been Tony Robbins, but this thought came up in my mind that the knowledge I was getting of the hundreds of books that I was reading and listening to and absorbing, I wasn't doing anything with it. All this wisdom that I have of just these years and decades from people is just stuck in my head. And the mistake that I made was I kept it there. That all this knowledge, all these thoughts and ideas that they just stayed inside. And the people who I needed to help and the business that I wanted to create was just that. It was just a wish, because I was simply not applying what I was learning. And with the principle from Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill of specialized knowledge, in my head, I put that also into applied knowledge. Because we have general knowledge. You can go to Google and, especially since AI is exploding these days, you can go to your favorite AI platform. You can type in, how old is Tony Robbins? Literally did that like a few minutes ago. 66 years old at this time. And it just pops up. But you can also search how to create a post on Instagram and how to upload a YouTube video, how to learn about type 1 diabetics for dummies, how to learn how to build an IKEA shelf for dummies. Like the general knowledge is there and the instructions are right in front of you. But it's what you do with it afterwards that matters. Napoleon Hill starts with desire, which is something that you want. If you don't want something, why the heck would you change? Then it goes into faith, which another word for that is belief. You know what you want and you see the possibility of it happening, but then you don't do anything with it. So to be able to truly believe is to then add the action part of, okay, now I'm going to start acting in accordance as if the possibility is already going to happen. Then it goes to autosuggestion, which is simply keeping it in front of your mind, putting a Post-it note on your fridge or your bathroom mirror or right on your dresser, having your goal, having your declaration statement there so that you know exactly what you're working for. Another thing is like a vision board. It's having it in front of you so that you know where it's at, whether that's sitting at your house or on your lock screen. But then after all of that, after you bring it to the front of your mind, you believe in the possibility, you know what you want, what the heck's the next step? Well, the next thing is get specific about what you are learning about. Get specific about what industry you're going in. There's this whole thing about let's be real. Most people chase general knowledge. They could be reading books, they could be watching videos, they can be learning everything. But the people who actually win, the people who actually become the champions are the ones who see the problems that are happening, but then give the specific solution for them. The entrepreneurs on Shark Tank aren't just there because they paid to be on the platform or they are friends with Mark Cuban or Mr. Wonderful. No, it's because they get so specific on solving a problem. From the little smiley face sponge to the little hose connector that hooks up to a fire hydrant for firefighters. Like there are so many ideas and there's so many problems out there that the solutions need to be so specific. And I know that one of the things I'm working on with the business that I have is helping dyslexics. I know that here at Champion Circle, we're helping business owners to be able to achieve a goal in 90 days or less. That's pretty specific. And we don't give general knowledge because, again, you can look it up on Google, but we give a roadmap. We talk about the problems so specific to where literally we'd be laying in bed and thinking, I'm thinking about myself, sleeping next to my spouse, laying in bed thinking, man, I want to be able to provide for them. I don't want my wife to need to work. I don't want her feeling the burden of having to go get an extra job just because I'm not providing. It's when I go out and I'm working with my employees or people who are oh my goodness, what is the word for that? Freelance, who freelance for me. It's, do I have a transactional relationship with them, or like, do I know who they are and they're long-term people who are going to stick with it? But even more specific of, how do I get to where I want to go? Like, this is all specialized knowledge. So I want to give a framework. Like, for those of you who are just like, I know what I want and I kind of know how to get there, but I don't know how to solve a specific problem for a specific people. Let me give you a framework. First thing, find a problem to solve. What is the problem that you are wanting to solve? Once you know what that is, and here we'll not just glance over that, but finding the problem to solve. One of the best things to do is to look at your own life and be like, what are some things that I need to learn? Like, what are some specific things that I need to know? That way that I know how to solve it for other people. If any of you watch TikTok or watch like YouTube shorts, Amalfi Jets, this private company who puts out TikTok videos about like, this is the best private, what do you call it, private flying brokerage to be able to go with, to be able to get private jets and stuff. I don't make enough money to be able to get a private jet yet, but I know that because they, one, were consistent with it, and two, address the problems in a nice, entertaining way for the people who are flying private, that when that happens and I need planes to go, they already got my good grace to be able to go over there and to work with them. So ask yourself, when it comes to like picking a problem, what is the problem that you can solve consistently? Because that's going to be able to be the solution for someone. Second thing is to go deep, not wide. Again, we got AI, we got general knowledge. As a neurodivergent myself, I'm seeing this awesome trend that's happening in the world today, in which other neurodivergents, dyslexic, ADHD, autistic, OCD, whatever divergent you're a part of, is that AI is really helping us with our weaknesses. Like, no joke. The reading and writing that usually took me forever to do can be done in a matter of seconds. And now I have more time to be creative, which I am very strong with, and be able to recognize patterns and to problem solving things outside the box. It's really cool. But I know what that is because I dive deep into it instead of wide. Wide is covered by AI. Deep needs to be covered by you. And I'll say that one more time. AI covers what's wide. You cover what's deep, what the people need. So we need to stop learning from everything and start mastering a single lane. And that comes from the problem that you're trying to solve. And then the second thing is start applying it fast. Like that mistake that I made when I was just starting out in those first couple of years when I was reading those books, is that I wasn't applying my knowledge. And I'll be honest with you, it was a hard pill to swallow. But me reading that many books, but not sharing my knowledge, is just as good as if I didn't read them in the first place. And that kind of sucks because I put a lot of time into that. So how do I combat that? How do I get out of it? Well, I start using the knowledge that I have. And I'm grateful back then that I read so many. And today I'm grateful for what I know now, because now it's, what is one thing I can get from this book to start applying? It's to start applying it fast, because I don't want to be that person who is just the same as someone who didn't read it in the first place, just because of my ego, my pride, my selfishness to keep it inside my head. I don't want to give value until people pay for me. I don't want to share all my secrets. Well, no one's going to listen to you if you don't have something good to say. So start sharing it. Start giving that value. Apply it fast. Do it consistently. And whatever business that you have, people are going to come. They're going to know that you're the person to go to. Just like for me with private jet flying, I know that's going to be a few years out, but I know Amalfi Jets is it. So apply it fast. And that's the framework. First thing is to pick a problem. Second thing is to go deep, not wide. And then the third thing is to apply it fast. Because when it comes to specialized knowledge and becoming the expert and the master in it, the deeper you go and the more that you master that one topic, the more that you're considered the expert and master in it. And people will listen to you. If you try to teach it, I've learned this early in my coaching career. If you try to coach everybody, nobody's going to listen. But if you're able to coach that one person, and sometimes that's just your past self, then those people who are going through the same problems will listen and pay because they want your decade of experience so that they don't have to do it in a decade. They can just do it in 10 weeks, 10 days, even 10 minutes. They want to save time. And you can do that as you go through it. So my challenge is do that framework, find that one problem that you're doing. And if you know that problem, then go to the second part, which for some reason is skipping my head, which is, there you go deep instead of wide. We make mistakes here. It's awesome. Go deep instead of wide and start applying it fast. Don't be like I was back when I first started, to where I was keeping it in and I was just as good as the person who didn't read it all. Be the one who's out there and applying it. And I know what I've seen from myself and the people who we've worked with here at Champion Circle, that the faster you connect the dots between the thoughts that you have and the actions that you take, the quicker you can fill that gap is the quicker in which you can get the results that you want and become the success that you desire. I want to thank you for letting me share my thoughts on this, as well as just this training that we've done. And I'm so excited to bring up this final speaker that we have, because Ian's the man. Ian's the GOAT, especially of dad jokes, but especially of this topic too. So I'm going to turn it right over to Ian Stermer, who's going to talk to us about specialized knowledge. Go ahead, Ian, and take it away.
I want you to imagine a situation here. You're just diagnosed with a brain tumor, okay? And you've got two options. You can go see a neurosurgeon who graduated in just about the bottom third of his class. Or you can go see the number one best computer programmer in the world. Which one of those people do you want to go see to treat your brain tumor? Now, if you're like me, even though this computer programmer is probably way, way smarter and a really intelligent guy with great hair, you're probably going to pick the neurosurgeon who wasn't necessarily the best at his job, because he has a specialized knowledge that you are in need of right now, desperately in need of in that case. Specialized knowledge is knowledge that you can apply to a specific need that you have. Doesn't matter how smart you are, how talented you are. Specialized knowledge is what is needed to finish the task, to move ahead in the career or the goals that you have set. And in the world today, I'm getting older now. There are changes in the world that I never imagined. I was watching a documentary on TV a little while ago, and one of the experts that spoke was a paleoclimatologist. I don't know about you, but I had never thought that paleoclimatology, or the study of climates in prehistoric times, was an entire career field. I thought it was maybe a footnote in something. But nowadays, there is so much knowledge out there that you have to become specialized in what you want to do. Being a climatologist, a history person, archaeologist, anthropologist doesn't cut it. You've got to go into climate paleontology if you want to study that field, which I just looked up and is one of the faster growing careers out there. So any young people watching this today, that might be an option for you if you want to know if it was cold during the Ice Age, which is about my knowledge of it. But specialized knowledge really is what's going to move you ahead of somebody else. great example of that is a man named Walter. So in 1908, Walter went to the Chicago Auto Show and he bought a Locomobile touring coupe, took it home to his house in Detroit, put it in the garage, and he took it apart. Then he put it back together. Then he took it apart again. Then he put it back together, and he kept doing this until he became an expert in how this car worked. Every bit, every piece of it. And then he started his own company. If you don't know, Walter's last name was Chrysler. So this is how the Chrysler Motor Company started out. Walter Chrysler recognized that automobiles were the future. And if he wanted to be part of that, he wanted to be in that creation process, he needed to know more about automobiles than any other person out there. And he went through repetition over and over again, taking apart this car till he understood the purpose behind every single piece of it. Now, without that effort to put in to specialized knowledge, we're never going to get there. Without that goal of what we're trying to accomplish, without that desire to learn more and to grow. But in the end, it's going to come down to the work we put in to gaining that knowledge, to become better than everyone else. Now, famous internet personality Mr. Beast once made a comment that to get 100 times more views on a video, you don't have to be 100 times better than the next video. You just have to be 0.1% better than the next video to capture all of that. Now, I think with specialized knowledge that you might need a little bit more. I think you can't rely on being just a tiny bit better than someone else. You've got to prove yourself to be the best person, or at least the best person around, at accomplishing the goal, at knowing what it takes to fix the goal that you have. Just like that neurosurgeon versus the computer programmer. The neurosurgeon has to be good enough. If he graduated bottom in his class, you might take your odds on the computer programmer. But if he's got enough knowledge and he's high enough above the next person there, you're going to run to that neurosurgeon to solve your problem for you. Now, specialized knowledge, I'm going to jump here to a lesson I learned about a little while ago. Specialized knowledge is not general knowledge. It's not necessarily even being smart. There's a difference between intelligence and specialized knowledge. And I was at a friend's house and he had some work being done on his house. And there was a handyman doing some of the work. And I'm going to apologize for something bad that I thought. I was talking to this handyman and I thought, he's really not that smart. Okay, judgmental. I should not do that. I learned a lesson from this. Then I started looking at what he was doing as he was working in this house. And I thought, I have no idea how to do any of that stuff. I consider myself to be a fairly smart guy. And this guy that I didn't think was all that smart knew what he was doing. He knew how to measure, how to estimate, how to figure what materials were needed, what tools were going to be needed, how to utilize those tools to make a product that looked good and it was a quality, something that I could not begin to do. But he had a specialized knowledge that I simply didn't have. And I realized I've got to respect this guy because he's put in the effort. He's taken the time to learn the skills. He's put in the practice to it. And he is far superior to me in this whole area. It made me wonder if maybe my specialized knowledge is not that practical sometimes. Hopefully I can put it into something a little practical, and you can put in the comments here and let me know if I'm succeeding or not. But specialized knowledge is, as I was looking through this, I said, okay, this is the simplest, most obvious of any of these skills Napoleon Hill teaches. Yeah, you got to know how to do what you're trying to do. If you don't have knowledge about it, you are going to fail. I was working on a project, a new company I'm working on setting up, and the actual company, what we do, I have no knowledge in. I know how to set up a company, how to market it, and how to run it. I don't know how to do the actual work. So I had to go and start studying that side of it. And I grabbed a partner who knows that side of it. And that's the next part of specialized knowledge I want to point out. We need to have specialized knowledge, but we don't always have to know everything ourselves. I grabbed a partner who had a specialized knowledge in the actual product we were working at. Henry Ford famously was being on trial about whether or not he really knew everything about automobiles and automobile manufacturing. And he got fed up with the judges. He said, I've got a row of buttons on my desk that I can push that will connect me directly with a dozen engineers who can answer any question I have. Specialized knowledge, we have to learn, but we also have to know how to find that specialized knowledge. The world today is so complicated, we can't know everything. We can Google and get facts instantly. You want to know who fought in the War of the Roses? You can find it instantly. England and somebody else. I didn't look that one up. You want to know, what was the difference between Paleolithic and Mesolithic? You can Google it. You want to know how to run a company? You can't Google that. It's ungoogleable. That's a new word for you. Ungoogleable information. You have to find that. You have to study it. You have to work it out. Now, my wife grew up in Hong Kong. When she was in school, she was taught to memorize everything. She could recite answers. Great. Matter of fact, she still is kind of like Google. I can ask her something, she can recite the answer to it. But she complains that she never learned how to apply that knowledge, how to make the specialized knowledge applicable to what she needed to do. There was no problem solving in it. And that's really what specialized knowledge becomes. How do you get the knowledge to problem solve your narrow field? And again, it takes the time and effort to put in to learn your field. You have to have a broad knowledge, but you have to have a deep, specific knowledge in your field to be successful today. Otherwise, it's not going to work. I think one of the greatest, I love sayings and quote, if you've been following along, you know that about me by now. One of my favorite ones is survey wide fields, cultivate small fields. And I think that's the key to success. If you want specialized knowledge, you want to be, well, I should say, if you want to be successful, you need to have specialized knowledge. You need to have a broad understanding of a lot of things, but you need a deep, deep understanding of your field so that you are an expert that people will go to, will look to, and dare I say, will pay for your knowledge to move forward. So I just want to finish that with the idea that if you're not taking time to delve deep into your field, to become the expert in your field, start doing it. It's not that hard. It just takes some time. So if that is your weak link, specialized knowledge, learn more than anyone else about your field.
Ian, thank you so much for your training, and thank you to all our speakers today for the wisdom that they shared, as well as you who is listening and watching to this. Thank you for coming, because you've learned some really good things about specialized knowledge. And now it's your turn. From what you learned today, what are you going to take away? Pick one thing and start applying it, and go deep into being specialized knowledge and bringing that value to people. And that wraps up this training from Think and Grow Rich principles that we do here at Champion Circle. Make sure to go to our website, mychampionscircle.com, to be able to find the links of everything else going in the Champions universe, as well as go to our YouTube channel, which is at My Champion Circle on YouTube, so that you can find all these other trainings that we go over, the 13 principles, as well as even more specialized trainings. such as AI, LinkedIn, how to set goals, and everything else. So make sure to jump over there, and we'll see you on the next training.